Good morning, Kirst. It's Tuesday of the last week of the Ontario election campaign. I'm joined here by my lovely panelists back from the wilds, Jordan Leichnitz, Deb Hutton, and Scott Reid. We've got a tight 30-minute package for you today of provincial and federal news. We're going to talk about the governing PC platform unveiled yesterday. We're going to talk about the remaining battlegrounds in Ontario where the leaders are traveling to and fighting it out. We'll talk about the French debate in the Liberal Party last night as we switch over to the federal side of things. But first, the polling. Today's Relay Strategies polling is brought to you by Enbridge Gas, reliable, affordable natural gas to heat your homes and power our economy. So,
dramatic turn?
Very dramatic, very dramatic, very dramatic. Big night for the Greens last night. Our overnights, are 47, 28, 16, and 9. So Ford's down a point and the Greens are up a point. And I think this could be a pivot moment in the campaign.
I heard
we've arrived back at exactly where we started.
Right.
Did this even happen?
Make wealth great again. And I think Schreiner's finally starting to click, you know?
No, to Jordan's point, if I had only recorded that polling thing once at the beginning of the campaign and we just run it every day, would anybody be worse off?
No.
It's but Deb, you must have been really excited to see all the specificity of Ford's platform and the rigorous accounting that was put forward.
Yeah, I'm just here for Deb's breakdown of the fully costed Ford platform.
Sorry, David, I mean to steal you.
All right. You know what? The skill of good interviewing is not to frame the question so outrageously harsh.
All right,
let's Deb, you did talk about costed platforms yesterday, so tell us about the PC platform.
Well, hopefully Kory doesn't listen to this podcast because I'm not real thrilled. We now have 4 platforms that claim to be fully costed and not a single one are. So I wasn't thrilled. The Premier's answer to why it wasn't fully costed actually is not a bad one because it supported the whole point of this campaign, which is I'm here to deal with Donald Trump tariffs. I'm here to get a mandate to do that. And we don't know what kind of shit's going to hit the fan for us. So I got some money for you in case it does. And couldn't tell you what the budget will look like all because of that. That, to me, was the narrative of yesterday. So as a fiscal conservative, doesn't make me happy. $40 billion in new spending. I get it. That's, as I said, the whole point of why we're in this election campaign in February. But listen, I believe in balanced budgets. I believe in costed platforms. I do get that we're in interesting times, crisis times, potentially in a few days, but don't love it at all.
Well, things get really desperate with this Trump aggression. We're going to need that tunnel for 25,000 Ontarians to flee into and hide out from the economic and potentially military storms. Right?
I was thinking we could use it to store the strategic reserve of maple syrup. You know, you could just hide it in there, be safe from the invading forces.
Before the cynicism becomes overwhelming. Deb, just one last thing with you.
Yeah.
Ford pretty much conceded that he's not going to balance the budget yesterday, did he not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And again, like his...
And when did that become cool?
Well, unfortunately for me, it's been cool for a while not to have balanced budgets. People don't care about deficits. I'm about the only one, and I say it every time I talk to Peter Bethlenfalvy, I'm about the only one who cares about deficits and debt because the Conservatives do not anymore. And it makes me sad, and I think it's wrong, but so far it's working for them.
Right. All right, Jordan? Did they leave any opportunities? Did they?
You make it sound like there's kids hanging out on the corner going, "Hey, we're overspending tonight. What are you doing, straight lace? Hey, nerd, you going home to balance the budget? Are you gonna sit at your mom's basement and be fiscally prudent? Not us. We're out of here spending money on hot rods we can't afford."
When's the last time anybody cared about balancing the budget? Seriously. Either the general public or most of the politicians. It's just
like about a decade ago.
Seems to me I've heard someone recently on the national stage mention the need to spend less but invest more.
Well, that just means
but not even fix the budget, Scott, by the way. Yeah. I mean, I think we're just in such a different environment, and the public cares more about whether the government is going to be there to help make their life easier.
Awesome.
On your side. On your side.
Yes, exactly. So I think that that's really the overwhelming thing. And, you know, I recall back to the last time a campaign really tried to make balancing a budget a central facet. That was 2015. Sorry, my 3-year-old here is putting a squishmallow on camera.
Yeah.
That was 2015, and
it's the most entertaining thing that's happened on this show in weeks.
Don't you guys usually bill yourself as family-friendly entertainment?
Yes, exactly right.
Really, what I think of when I think of this show.
The family, though.
Anyway, yeah, I think nobody cares. That's the point. And this is proof in the pudding that the PCs won't even pretend to get there anymore.
People only cared for 4 years of their whole history. Sorry.
Okay, that's right. People only cared about deficits, really. But when the Liberals were in power, I don't think I ever went a day without somebody telling me that Ontario was the most heavily indebted subnational jurisdiction in the world.
Oh, my.
Right? And that, the Ontario's fiscal problem, its debt, was an issue in Ontario at that time. And it helped Ford in 2018. Where is it now?
Well, I think Post Media has put it back in his pants and zippered up, and they've gone on to something else. I mean, that's really what. Like, how many years did we hear about the brain drain until the brain drain wasn't an issue, right? And how many years do we hear about greatest subnational debt in the whole wide world, and it was going to bring us all to whatever, right? Like, this will come around. There will be a breaking point at some point, and suddenly it will become de rigueur to campaign on actually making the advocates line up, but it's not now. So Ford's not going to pay a penalty for it in the same way that none of the others pay a penalty for it. But you still get people kind of talking to both sides of their mouth, saying, "Oh my God, like look at these Liberals and all their big spending promises." And you're kind of like, I don't. Have you had your eyes open for the past 7 years? We're building a tunnel to Mars. Like, I mean, that's expensive.
Sticking with you, Scott. I mean, I understand, I guess, perhaps the impulse behind this, because the polling continues to tell us that cost of living is far more important to voters than anything else is right now. But much more to female voters than to male voters. Male voters are quite interested in the Trump thing, but female voters have remained dead focused on affordability. But this liquor gimmick, like, what do they have with liquor? Does this actually touch that? Does this in any way address that? Does it even symbolically do that? Like, what is with Ford and liquor? I like liquor.
I have a theory.
I have a theory. The next guy is you. But
this is not going to lower the price of Lemon Heart rum.
No, it is not going to. Right. It's from Buck of Beer.
It's not for you.
From Buck of Beer to Looney Liquor, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. But I think it's interesting. You would think they might even be shy about going back to it, because Buck of Beer, although it actually was, I think, depressingly captivating in 2018, but it obviously went nowhere. It did nothing. It didn't entice a single retailer or a single producer to follow suit, and this won't either. But like, I think one thing at the very highest level about Ford and the Ford people is they know what Doug Ford is, right? And they feed the Doug Ford brand. So they go back to the greatest hits over and over and over again, and they feed that. And this has been, I'm going to get you booze where you want. You're going to have booze in corner stores. You're going to have, there's going to be booze in your car when you start it this morning. There's going to be booze. If Doug Ford will see to it, right, that there's a drink waiting for you when you get up. And it's, it's kind of like people go, okay, well, I know, in a weird way, I don't even think it's about booze. I just think it's Doug Ford has figured out how to be the comfortable sweatshirt you put on in the morning when you don't have to go out. And politically, they just reinforce that all the time. It's why they do these fucking songs, which I'm going to come back to later, right? Every campaign has a song. They're going to mention Buck of Beer and Looney Liquor, and they're going to talk about a highway. Like, they know what people think Doug Ford's about, and they feed it, and they feed it, and they feed it, and you can't argue with the results. It's working.
Jordan, is there a tight, sharp critique of this budget that might in any way make a difference?
I mean, no. I think I
Budget.
think
Sorry, what did I say? Budget.
yes,
Platform.
the
Yeah.
platform, fake
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. I mean, look, I think the obvious critique is that they have crafted it to put things like removing the price floor on liquor in the window. That's one of the little nuggets that were put in there in order to capture headlines. And hopefully distract away. You will notice that in the document the tunnel is completely buried. It's really hidden in there.
I saw what you did there. The tunnel is
Tunnel.
buried.
It's buried.
Right?
Yeah, it's good.
The
Thanks for
well is
following.
wet. These
Yeah.
guys.
But I think that the obvious contrast is that we're in a situation where this government has chronically underfunded healthcare, is starving public services, our schools are crumbling. So there's I think fundamentally, to Deb's point about whether these platforms are accurately costed or not, this is a big bugaboo of mine. I've helped write multiple platforms, and I really think it's such a diminishing return both for the parties and for the public, because political parties are not in government. They don't have access to full information. So it can't be a complete fake budget. But what it can do is signal to voters priorities, right? It signals orders of magnitude, where parties are thinking about putting money. And what you can see in this is that really his focus is on yes, it's the economy and it's all the stuff that he's put in the window around Trump, but it's also this gimmicky shit, like the price floor on liquor, and it really does harken back to Buck a Beer, which was such a failure actually in its implementation, which also harkens back to the canceling of the beer store deals, which is going to cost taxpayers over $1 billion. So I think that there isn't maybe an attack to be made there, but that is in a normal election where issues are actually part of the conversation, and that's not where we are.
All right, I need some runway here because that's a lot. My child's school is not crumbling. Do I believe we need to do some things in education? Absolutely, starting with getting teachers in the classroom instead of sitting at home on leaves of absence and having at best a supply teacher in front of them. But my kid's school's not crumbling. Whole bunch of things here. First and foremost, Scott, you spent 5 minutes talking about the tunnel and Buck a Beer and lowering the floor price for alcohol. You weren't talking about hallway healthcare. So there is some sanity to all of this madness. And I think it was very effective. If you want to talk about changing the floor as opposed to the spending and all of that, then you're welcome to do it. You're not talking healthcare. Second thing on this, maybe the tunnel will have the
Cheap
liberal
booze
high speed.
is healthcare in my household, just as an asterisk, okay?
Let's maybe see if the high-speed tunnel that the Liberals want to build federally is on top of the tunnel. So we're in crazy town when it comes to actual big infrastructure projects, and it's not happening yet next year. I'm not dismissing that there will be money spent, because there will be, but we've got some big projects on the table that most of us, I think, shake our heads at. The final point on this is, if you want to talk about booze, for me, it's as simple as less government, less interference, and more competition. So there is something to actually be said on the policy. There's my rant. There's my partisanship. Go at it.
Okay. Can I throw one other thing out, which is that
Really?
I think, and it's not partisan, it's interesting that we are in a time where platforms don't matter. You're better off to run on 3 or 4 priorities to satisfy the test that Jordan highlighted, to avoid the risks of tripping yourself up thematically by having some paragraph on page 36 of your platform that creates a headache like O'Toole had. That's the era in which we live. But I think there's something more, and it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if this pendulum swings back in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. We're in politics has almost been reduced to the id, to the vibe, to the feel, to the gut reaction, right? And advertising has always been about, and marketing has always been about understanding that you don't make a cerebral appeal, you make an emotional appeal. That's much more affecting, right? And that principle has been executed in politics since time infinitum, at least since the early 60s. But it feels like it is now between social media and the way that we operate and a reality television president, it feels like that is completely, for everybody, just kind of complete id, complete gut, complete feel. That's the whole of campaigns efforts now, especially with the crumbling of earned media. And I just think, which, imposes some focus on specificity and accountability for ideas and statements. And it'll be interesting to see if that swings back. Because including Carney, you hear candidates come forward every few years and go, now it's time for a serious person to address a serious issue. And that kind of just gets bulldozed after a little while. And it's all about how's this person's notional candidacy make me feel, right? And when you have an argument with somebody about Trump, as an example, they never come back and go, well, no, you're wrong. Here's why I like his policy on Ukraine. It's like, it makes me feel strong, right? At least we're setting the pace now. At least we're telling people no more free rides. And it just seems to be the triumphant fact of politics these days. It's all it's all feel. Anyway, and I'll turn this into a TED talk that no one will listen to or care about.
You already have.
Well, actually, there is a TED talk, right? It's the good old Simon Sinek one. People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it, and that is just as true in politics as it is in marketing. And so I think that what has changed in the last few years is just people's sort of interest and capacity and engagement with some of those deeper policy items is just not what it once was, in part because of the decline of the legacy media. But at the end of the day, in most races, you can see that the party or the person who wins is the one that voters perceive to be on their side and working for them. And that's always true.
And that's why David Herle is always going to win the next election, because that man is in your corner.
I'm in that corner. Deb, so there's 2 days of campaigning left. Today, Ford is in Eastern Ontario and Mississauga. Stiles is in London, Waterloo, and Scarborough. And Crombie is in Toronto and Scarborough. Where are there any battlegrounds left, and where are they?
So I think London obviously is a concern for Stiles. She's got what, Jordan, 3 seats there currently,
3,
and
yeah.
Obviously they're at risk. I keep going back to Niagara just because I know it very well, and I do think that's a battleground. Nobody's there today, interestingly. We'll see if they're there tomorrow. And Bonnie's obviously looking at Toronto, and Ottawa's an interesting one for me because I'm not sure. There's been a lot of Ottawa push in the last few days. All 3 leaders have been in since the beginning of the weekend. So I need to brush up on my Ottawa seats because obviously I know there's a number of them, but obviously there are some in play. We have an incumbent who isn't running, Lisa MacLeod. So there's a few differences there. I think where Marit goes tomorrow will be interesting because, as we've discussed, she is in a fight to just retain the majority of her seats, quite frankly.
Right. Well, both of the Jordan, maybe you can pick up here, but it seems to me that obviously both of the both of Crombie and Stiles are in running for second tour choice, right? In the sense that neither of them is in any place that's going to break them out into new territory.
Yeah, I mean, the clock is running down on this campaign. And so I think that where you see them going right now reflects a balance of seats they want to defend and then, of course, the pickups, right? And so I think, and maybe we'll have a chance to talk more about this tomorrow, but some of the seats, Ottawa West Nepean, which is currently held by the NDP in Ottawa, that's going to be a tough fight for sure. Apart from Toronto, Windsor West, Sudbury, those are going to be some tough fights for Stiles. But she's also been spending time in areas where I think that they may see pickups. So Thunder Bay, Atikokan, Sault Ste. Marie is definitely one that's looking pretty good, I think, for them. And York Southwestern's another potential. So, it's a balance, right? Like, so there's some that are defensive, but there's the two are still very much going into areas where they think that they can see some growth, depending on how those vote splits shake down.
Jordan, do you really think the NDP are in pickup mode? I mean, I
do.
assume they just need to defend what they've got.
No, I think they're still going after pickups, especially in some of those PC seats where they see vulnerability.
Well, to David's point yesterday, I think that's a mistake.
I guess
she needs to just defend what she's got.
We'll find out soon enough.
We will.
Scott, any observations on where the fight still remains?
I'm reminded of the closing days of the 2014 campaign. and you and I were talking, and you were like, we've got what we needed, we got what we want, and we're pushing out. And so we started looking at whether it was where the tour went or whether it was where resources were deployed. You started looking, I can remember you talking about like looking up to Caledon, like moving north of the city into a spot that you wouldn't naturally assume that the Liberal Party at that time might be competitive. And sure enough, there was some pleasant pickups there. And to me, I'll just focus on Ford for the sake of discussion. I see his campaign, among the many restraints that it has, given that it's at 47%, is that in these final days, you can really see them picking the wings off the bug. Like, I think he's going into Mississauga to see, well, can he bury Bonnie? And he's going in to a couple of other spots to see, can I take, outside of the 416, can I take every NDP seat away? Can I and so I think that's it. And Bonnie moving into Scarborough makes sense to me because there's some NDP seats there, and then steal those, which you would think those seats are going to be highly competitive, and they may be three-way splits, which might actually help the Liberals, depending. And so that all makes sense. But I watched the Ford campaign. It reminds me of that pace and the luxury that a winning campaign has. Reminds me of the end of 2014, and you're like, you know what? I think you wouldn't normally think that we're going to actually, win in Wales, but I think I'm going to send some people to Wales. We're going to try it, and that seems to be happening.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding us of a terrible time in the Hutton Hoot Hack.
Sorry, Deb. That wasn't actually. I wasn't even thinking about that. I apologize.
Wasn't my favorite campaign either.
Okay, so let's blow past it. And get to our do-overs. Well, folks, we're in the home stretch now. The 2025 Ontario election campaign is in its final days. And since the writ first dropped, our original sponsor, the Ontario Real Estate Association, has been asking all four political parties to help save the dream of home ownership. Because even at a time when home ownership rates are on the decline, we know the desire to own a home remains strong. And we need more homes and more affordable choices to make that happen. That's why the next provincial government at Queen's Park must embrace housing as a core issue and implement bold actions to increase supply, improve consumer protections, and lower the cost of housing across the province. Whether we're talking about ending exclusionary zoning, improving the efficiency of the landlord and tenant board, or limiting municipal development charges, the actions needed to keep the Canadian dream of home ownership alive are out there, and we need decision makers to embrace them. To read OREA's full 2025 Ontario election platform, A Home for Everyone 2025, visit orea.com/platform. Our do-overs, I remind you folks, are something our party did yesterday that we think they should have done differently. So, Deb.
Well, I've already said once, Kory shouldn't listen to this podcast, so now I've got a second reason for it. I'm not a fan of, and I won't admit it necessarily, but I'm not a fan of, in particular, the new candidates not debating. I really don't like that just from a democratic perspective. I also think it's a short-term positive in that you're not talking about your candidate stepping in something stupid. You need to get these guys with some experience. We talked about this in Carney, right? If people are going to continue in politics, if they're going to win, they need to be able to think on their feet, talk on their feet, and actually be able to engage in public policy. So I don't love that the majority of candidates are not attending their local debates.
Fair enough. Jordan.
So mine is not something from yesterday, but it's sort of on reflection for the arc of the campaign. I think that probably in retrospect, the most important thing that didn't happen for Mart and the NDP that needed to was a year ago, was work that they needed to do at that time to pull out of some of the internal stuff that they were dealing with then and really focus on a paid campaign to introduce Mart to Ontarians while there was still some sort of breathing room and space and bandwidth, and while Bonnie was still really relatively new, and that not investing that money and that time up front put them in such a crunch during this campaign in admittedly circumstances that would have been difficult to predict a year ago with Trump and the tariffs and all of that. But that it's just been the normal rule that when we enter into a writ period, more people pay attention, there's greater visibility, you can count on your leader becoming better known. Like that, none of that stuff is just happening organically the way it might have in a regular campaign. So that would be my redo, is a very small time machine to just go back about a year, maybe $500,000, and some really good ads.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I agree. Scott?
If the NDP slide to third, watch for a return of those intramural wars with unbelievable force. To be the Sandwich Jalmakut will be coming out with sticks and stones. My do-over, I don't know if I can call it up here. Can you guys hear this? Get that?
No, don't hear a thing.
Oh,
yeah, there.
It just came.
We need a new party. So on the weekend, some guy just like contacts the Crombie campaign and says, "Hey, listen, man, I wrote this kind of like calypso tune for the campaign. You guys have the rights. Use it as you see wish." They put it up on social media. So my do-over is I would have put like every last remaining ounce of paid. Boy, my son's going to love this one. All the paid in behind this song. You know, campaigns can use a little fun now and then. This song is crazy fun. It's kind of cool, you know? So there we go. Calypso, man. That's the key to closing out strong. Go Calypso.
I'm just having this image of Trudeau doing it in blackface.
Oh, man. All right. I want to
Family
just
friendly.
indemnify
Too soon.
myself on this podcast for the remaining people who are loyal to Trudeau. I didn't say that. I didn't smirk or smile when it was said. I do not associate myself with that remark in any way, shape, or form. I wish for it to be on the record.
Bring back Jordan's kids.
My do-over is, Deb used to be repetitive with her do-overs about the Ford and the media. My do-over is repetitive. It's that Bonnie spent another day on healthcare yesterday, and I just don't think it's going to turn the campaign. I just don't. I think this campaign's about leadership, and you need to put a chink in Ford at this point, and probably on the affordability front. There's lots of stuff to work with there. But they've got a strategy. They're committed to it. Let's see how it works out. At the end of the day, they've moved themselves incrementally a couple of points, but it hasn't really done much. And they've only got a couple of days left. All right, let's quickly, because we're almost out of time, let's just quickly do a tour through the Liberal French debate last night. We'll have more time to talk tomorrow after the English debate tonight, which may be more consequential. But Scott, what'd you see?
Oh, I had to watch it because
Well, first of all, let me ask you a more precise question. It's the only question that matters. How did Carney do?
Possibly. My French stinks, obviously, but I made a point of watching it in French, so that I could try to take that test. And I mean, first of all, one bad thing always is if I'm watching you in French and I can pick out everything you're saying and understand it, then your French isn't very fluid. So you could see that Carney was sort of struggling. Someone I saw wrote, that he was translating things in his head, and that's how it looked to me. But I think the important thing for Carney is he was passable. He got through it in French, and the debate, and we all wondered about this yesterday, the debate was not a fist fight. Freeland, I thought Freeland actually was kind of almost furniture in the debate. She wasn't, if there was anybody you noticed, it was Gould, who's much more comfortable and natural in French, and therefore was able to kind of just move in real time. She could bring energy, but the debate was about Trump, and they didn't even direct their ire at Poilievre. It was almost entirely directed at Trump. The one thing is, I think that the moderator surprised them with the question about the Quebec Constitution, and it won't get a lot of attention in English Canada, but boy, oh boy, you could see how uncomfortable every single one of the candidates were. And it really reminded me of those 1990 Meach debates, David, when that issue just carved right through the party, but no one wanted to touch that radioactive ball of the Quebec Constitution last night. They're literally, Freeland was the first to answer, and she, when asked about it, she said, she did her thing in French, where she goes, "Let me start by saying that French is very important, I think we all can agree. It is very, I'm not fucking kidding. That was her answer. It was, I like French. I like the French language. I like French clothing. I like French food. And I think my time talking about this subject is now done. And like, it was like, you could just see them running for the hills. So anyway, I thought Carney survived. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to say anything more glowing than that.
All right. Deb, did you see anything? Did you watch it?
So I popped in and out of it between car drop-off pickups, and I'm with Scott. When I'm listening and I can understand, there's a problem with their French. Don't disagree with much of what Scott said. You guys were all on the Freeland will not attack, which I think is a mistake. So what I saw last night was milquetoast, and it's over. I mean, Carney, unless something massive changes tonight, Freeland had an opportunity. She may, for the reasons you guys discussed yesterday, not wanted to have taken it. But I mean, she helped him out with his French, for Christ's sake. He said he supported Hamas, and she jumped in and said, no, we don't support Hamas, Mark. So, it was...
I don't know if she was helping him. So I felt like she was rubbing his nose and shit.
I don't...
He misspoke,
listen,
obviously.
Obviously, he misspoke. But I just thought there was nothing to it. The question, which I can't answer as a non-Quebecer, is, was it passable enough for Carney, which we discussed was really the test last night on his French in Quebec. I was surprised they didn't go after Poilievre more. Maybe they think if they tie Trump to Poilievre through their ads, as they've started to do, that'll be enough. But I was surprised by that. Can I just say, though, I do want to talk, whether it's right now, David, or a little bit later, at this notion that Bonnie Crombie is going to endorse Mark Carney. Is that something he actually will want?
I know, right? You'd think you would want to know what you're getting, like maybe after Thursday.
I thought there was also a hint in that story that they're going to meet. Maybe not in public. Maybe they'll just meet like behind the portable. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it was a little vague, It's like,
Pistols
I just
at dawn.
came to meet with Mark Carney. He's left. But he allowed me to bring out this Polaroid of the two of us talking, and you therefore cannot deny that we were together. Yeah.
Well, I like it. I mean, I
like
think it's
it.
smart for. I think it's smart for her to
Very
do.
smart.
I mean, it's not as good as if he.
Yeah.
It's not as good as if he endorsed her. Let's put it that way. She's trying to grab a little bit of his pixie dust and sprinkle it on herself, but he's making her do all the work.
I thought it was creative. Like, imagine they're sitting around there like, can we get Carney to endorse us? Maybe not. What if we endorse Carney? Eureka! Right?
It's like a preteen movie where the girl really likes the guy and she's trying to like pull him closer to her to give him a kiss.
In class.
Exactly.
And
Yeah. And it's always the plain Jane girlfriend who gets
Sorry,
in the end.
got
wait,
us
I
off
have
on a
things to
tangent.
say about the French debate,
Okay.
which is, other than it was pénible, which it really was to listen to. I actually thought it did Carney some real harm. His French continues to be very rough. And the point is not whether he can get a sentence out, because he can, it's clunky, but the special magic that's needed when you're an Anglophone for Quebecers to kind of open up to you is like, you have to show your personality through, right? That is the thing that needs to happen. And I think that what
Interesting point.
yesterday really showed was that his limitations in French prevents that. Like, he did have a hard time making himself feel understood on a factual basis at a couple points, but more than anything, you could see, like, you couldn't really see much of him in that debate. He was really like the mechanics of expressing himself kind of took over. And so I actually think it was a pretty poor night for him. I think Gould had the best night by far, and she had the sharpest elbows out of everybody.
Yeah.
She was the only one I thought was who was.
Did you listen in French?
I did. Yes. Yeah, I did.
And you listened in French, Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did too.
I listened in English because I'm not judging anybody's French, and I wanted to know what they were saying. Karina Gould, and what I learned after 2 hours, she's a completely unreconstructed Trudeauite. Like, she's the continuity candidate.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
she supports everything the Trudeau government did, fundamentally.
Otherwise known as the lefty progressive. But
Yeah, but it's smart, right? Like, she is playing for the next leadership race, and I think that once the Liberal Party has gone back and experienced a period as a centrist or center right leaning party again, there will be an appetite for that. There will be a constituency always for that within the Liberal Party, and so I think what she's doing is really smart, and I think that she's proven herself to be quite a competent candidate against many who predicted otherwise.
Jordan, I don't think your criticism of Carney, though, is because of his French. I mean, we'll see tonight, but I just don't think
We'll see.
there's personality there.
Yeah, I guess it's just to the question of can an Anglophone charm Quebecers get their, that capacity to show your personality is really, really important. And I don't think he got there.
Deb, I'll make you a challenge. Let's take Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre and introduce them to 100 people and see who has more friends at the end of it.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Oh, God.
All right.
You'll lose them.
I do not want to be at this party. How do I avoid this cocktail party?
This length of wood used to be twice as long with half as much money.
Greetings, Canadian Political Pod listener. I'm your narrator, Gary, an artificial intelligence-generated voice. Exciting and serious sounding is what we typed in the AI voiceover input field. And boom, Gary exists. Hey, do you know what's not artificial? Not even one bit? The highly influential audiences air quotes media podcasts offer to its advertisers. And I say that with all the sincerity a machine learning, data-optimized, predictive network of interconnected neural nodes can muster. Whether your ad message is on Curse of Politics, the Hurly-Burly, Hotel Pacifico, or the brand new Race to Replace, you will be reaching cabinet ministers, members of parliament, the political class, the C-suite, and corporate Canada, leading journalists, and tens of thousands of engaged Canadians. People saying this is a unique political moment is underselling it. Policy is under scrutiny. A party leader is being voted on. The Ontario election is underway. There will be a new prime minister. And then there's the guy living in the White House who calls us the 51st state. Does anyone remember another time like this? I'm instantly scouring millions of data points to answer my own rhetorical question. No, you do not. This is when you need to get your message to the decision makers. Email us at contact@airquotesmedia.com. You'll be dealing with Jill and Todd, who are real, not artificial at all people, and generally very friendly. Well, Jill is anyway. We're still deciding about Todd.
Blessing or curse? You go first, Jordan.
Okay, so my curse is going out to the Ford campaign and really to any conservative who is out defending and enthusiastic about the platform yesterday. I never want to hear another single fucking word about a social program being too expensive. That man put $100 billion tunnel uncosted into his platform at a time when Ontario has 80,000 homeless people, when we don't have family doctors, when, yes, our schools are crumbling. My kid's school has a hole in the gym roof. They have photocopiers in the hallway. It is a joke. This is
hallway education.
Hallway education, pretty much. That's where we're at. And look,
hallway learning, hallway healthcare.
I get it. I understand. They have the fiscal credibility so they can get away with this shit. But it is absolute garbage to say that we have money for things like this fantasy tunnel and we don't have money to solve actual crying problems in our province. So I never want to hear another word out of any of those folks about a single social program. And that is my curse.
So no more less spending and more investment then, Jordan.
Yeah, no more. No more.
Scott, you got a blessing or a curse?
Yeah, mine is weird and humiliating. My curse is Scott Reid. And here's the point. You might remember a week or two ago on the final day, like we had to do the big money thing and the Queen of Gold campaign put out an appeal. And I was saying on the pod, well, you know what? I went and I gave money to her. And yesterday, which I did. And
you're an unreconstructed Trudeauite.
Because I'm an unreconstructed Trudeauite. And I will refuse to apologize for any of their policies or thoughts or actions. And I wanted to, I was like, hey, let's make sure she stays in the race. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was, support candidates. And so then, and I'd already given money to Carney because I actually think he's the best candidate. And not
front runner chaser.
Not that front runner chaser, futures chaser, notwithstanding the fact that Deb says that, if he was at a funeral, he'd be less interesting than the guy in the casket. But anyway, and so I think I screwed. I got a call yesterday from somebody, and they're like, "Hey, I just want to. Did you give your max?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because you can give." And I'm pretty sure in past leadership races, you could give your max to more than one candidate. Anyway, it turns out I don't think you can. So now guy who's on TV talking about politics every day, I've had to email Elections Canada. This will be an interesting civics test. I've emailed Elections Canada to clarify and to ask what I could do if I've actually made a mistake. And I got a note back saying, "This is your number to certify that this conversation has been logged, and we will get back to you sometime, after the snow has been removed from the streets of Toronto." But anyway, so there you have it. Curse Scott. I feel like a horse's ass. So I don't even know if I gave money to the
hear the
Gold
cops
campaign
at your
now.
door right now.
It's okay,
election
Scott, because
cops.
you can still donate to another party. So if you're interested in supporting the ideas behind Gould,
I know
there's another party out there for you.
This is an age thing, not meaning that I'm too old that I forget things, but I'm so old that my reference points are outdated. I'm positive in 2006 you could give more to one candidate, and I did. And I try anyway. So I don't know. I don't even know. I don't
Jordan
know.
was
Next time
just
you see
projecting.
me,
Scott,
I
Jordan
might be
was
election. I might be in election jail.
Jordan was just projecting that she wishes that Karina Gould was the leader of her party, I think.
Well, listen, all the disaffected Karina Gould liberals, you know where to find us, okay, friends?
Well,
if you want the real deal, you know where we are.
Singh, I thought quite humiliatingly, was forced to speak at length at the microphones yesterday about the fact that he is not going to step down before the next election, which might be next weekend, and that and it was grim. It's a sign of the times, man. How bad do you suck, and when will you stop sucking? And have you thought about not sucking by going someplace other than Canada? Like, it was not fun for him.
We'll see.
I think Jenny Byrne's creating a Scott Reid ad as we speak, but we'll see. You know what? I can't decide whether mine's a blessing or a curse. I've been back and forth on it. Here's the thing. I'm reminded of something Scott said a couple of days ago, which was that, when you're decimated as a party as the Liberals were, you just don't have the boots on the ground. And there are some people obviously working for the Liberal leadership. And, it's really a sad place. May not have been what Scott said, but I'm paraphrasing. Because the tour that Bonnie has, while we've applauded their ads, the tour is a disaster. Like, the mechanics of some of her visuals are terrible. And the curse or blessing, take it how you will. Yesterday, she responded to a French-only survey in English. She went into a largely French-speaking riding and did it all in English. Not even French on her signs. And it just, on one hand, I think that's terrible, ridiculous. On the other hand, I feel kind of sad for them and sorry when they're so decimated that they can't even get some basics right.
It's true. And the note.
So I don't know, is that a blessing or a curse?
That's a curse.
I'd say it's a curse.
It's a curse on their organization,
but especially when you look at how easily Doug Ford can switch from one language to another, Jamaican to English.
That's his brother.
Patois.
Sorry.
Well, just conversely to that, my blessing goes out to the Conservative tour operation, which I think has been superb.
Yeah.
Superb throughout the whole thing. Ford's events look good all the time. And they have now been endorsed by more unions than I thought existed in the province of Ontario. I mean, they roll out a fucking 1 or 2 union endorsements every damn day. Jordan, I'm not saying this to you only. I'm saying it to the group of us. This is backbreaking, right? These people all used to be putting money into campaigns against the Conservatives. And now they line up to endorse them.
Yeah. He looks like he lives at a crosswalk. Everyone around him has a vest.
He's single-handedly stimulating the economy with the hard hat industry here in Ontario. But yeah, I mean, look, I think the brilliance is in how they've rolled out those union endorsements, because some of those are locals, right? Like, it's not massive numbers of people, but the way they've rolled it out, it makes it look huge, right? And so, if you're talking on a per person basis, obviously the public sector unions are the bigger fish there, but I think that the way that they've rolled out their endorsements is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, for sure.
Not all ex-girlfriends hate me, just the 31 that you've located.
I mean, we don't have a lot of days left, but I think one of the interesting things of this campaign is that the teachers and all their money and all their organization, which started before the campaign going against Ford, have been pretty much non-existent. I mean, I heard an ad on News Talk 1010 this morning, but they really have not been a factor in this campaign, which I find incredibly interesting.
Yeah, kind of sat it out. Yeah. All right. I want to thank our original sponsor, Aurea. Became our original sponsor under the leadership of Tim Hudak, by the way. I want to thank our original sponsor, Aurea, and our polling sponsor, Enbridge, for today. I want to thank the three of you for joining us and everybody who watched or listened to the show. And we'll be back tomorrow with one last look at the polling before the election. And maybe if you don't make it tomorrow, come back Friday. We'll have something to say on Friday for fucking shit. All right. See you tomorrow morning, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Have a good day.